Welcome, Dr. Wehling.
Thanks, man. Yes, welcome. Thank you. I originally was scheduled to do the math, science, engineering, whatever it is, before COVID. And so I have a great presentation about wonderful things about, medical school and all of that. And then COVID happened, and so nothing came of it. And so literally I was a week away from giving this presentation. I had this whole slide deck, and then COVID happened. So last year I came here and I saw you guys' is this put on by the business club? Is that what it is? Anyway, this is an awesome event. I mean, this is amazing. You guys should be proud of what you're doing here. This is a rare opportunity in the business world just to come to hear some people who have done things in the business and get their, maybe tips and tricks. But anyway, so thank you guys for allowing me to kind of, as a medical guy, to come in and give you a little bit of what I have done in not only healthcare, but kind of in the business world. So Aspirepreneur, this is a made-up word by me. Basically, it's aspiring to become an entrepreneur. And kind of like the introduction said, I knew a lot about medicine when I got done with training, but I knew zero about business. And so this is a little bit about my journey on how I gained some of that knowledge in the business world. Terry Pratchett says, if you don't know where you came from, how do you know you're going? So, what are you and what motivates you? You have to kind of take a little bit of a self-inventory. Like I said, I knew a lot about business. I spent, 13 years studying medicine only, and spending my entire time just focusing on that. And then I kind of realized that was coming to an end. I didn't have to spend as much time anymore. And I'm like, well, what else is there? What is in this world for me? So I kind of took a little inventory. What are my goals? What are my desires? What motivates me? What's my experience? What do I know? What do I not know? What knowledge do I need to acquire? Some of you that know me know that I don't come from a wealthy business family. My dad had a lot of careers and a lot of jobs, librarian, auto body, farmer, teacher. But it was the farmer one that really kind of gave me maybe a scar in my early life. He was a farmer in the 80s, and all of you guys are too young to remember the farm crisis of the 80s, but his operating line started at 8%, and farming is a very leveraged business, so you got to borrow for cattle and borrow for seed corn and borrow for fertilizer. By the end of the year, what was it, 81 or something like that, the 8% went to 18%. Now, he could make money at 8%, but he could not make money at 18%. And so basically the bank foreclosed. Everything on the farmer's world is in the business, and so the bank foreclosed and took everything. House, cars, everything that they could acquire as an asset. And so as a young guy, I don't even think maybe even just starting out in elementary school, that affected me a lot. I saw my parents be financially devastated, had to start basically from zero, on the clothes on their back basically, and start over. And I asked myself, how do I prevent that in my life? How do I make that never happen to me? And so one of the reasons why I went to medical school is that reason. Dave Ramsey says, if you cannot identify as a rich person, it's very unlikely that you will become one. Good quote by Vince Lombardi there, but basically motivation drives discipline, discipline drives change, and change brings results. You don't wake up one day a multimillionaire. You have to have a plan, you have to have focus, and you have to have a lot of discipline and time. So every goal, every dream starts out with a good story. My story starts out when I was about maybe 8 years old, farming in the top of the barn, in the loft, where they would store hay. And I remember kind of peering out over out of the little window there. My sister was, down there and kind of talking to me. I have two sisters, both older, graduates here of Union. But I remember my sister down there, she's like talking to me, she's like, well, it's not that far, why don't you just jump? And an 8-year-old, I mean, why not? I mean, I've seen Superman, I've seen the stuff, and so I sailed out the window, and to my surprise, wings didn't sprout, and my Superman cape didn't magically appear, and then boom, onto the hard dirt below. When I kind of bounced up, I realized my arm had another joint that wasn't there. And so I remember riding the back of the car on the way to Beatrice, just down the road down here about 40 miles, and arriving in the ER at Beatrice Hospital. And I was so impressed with these nurses and techs and and whoever was taking care. They loved on me. They gave me like good things to drink, and they gave me morphine. Is amazing. I don't remember a whole lot after morphine, but that's an amazing drug. I remember winding up, it was kind of a compound fracture of my forearm, so I wound up just down the street here at Bryant Hospital in the pediatric ward. Anyway, got done with that. Fast forward the clock, 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever, how long it takes a bone to heal. We're going to the clinic, my mom and I, and we were driving up in our car, and I remember going to the parking lot, seeing this amazing machine. And I'm like, oh, that is amazing. A little farm kid from the middle of nowhere. It's the coolest thing ever. And so I'm walking by it, and I remember just walking by it, looking at that license plate, and I asked my mom, I was like, what's a Blatney? She's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, it says on the license plate, Blatney. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's the name of your doctor. He's going to take your cast off. And I'm like, oh, doctors must be cool. So I set a dream way back then as an 8-year-old to become a doctor. But success in life doesn't come without help. In my target of being a doctor, I had a lot of challenges. I was not a smart kid. I was a good kid. I studied hard. But in my high school class in my academy, I probably was right in the middle. Not a high achieving class with only 20 students. But I remember taking the ACT. Do people still take ACTs? Yeah, I remember taking the ACT and getting a 21. Now, I don't know what the ranking is today, but a 21 is below average. And so it said I'd be a C student in college. Well, C students don't get to med school. And I remember talking to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I got an average score on my ACT. That means, I'm pretty average. And she said, no, you are not average. You may have got an average score, but you are not average. I'm like, oh, okay. That kind of got me thinking, like, maybe there's something more there. So I went off to Union College here, and I met this great, wonderful man. Anybody know who this is? Chuck Friedline. Oh, he was an amazing guy, wasn't he? Oh, he's just... So I go in the first day of chemistry class, and there's this bench with like some stuff on it. And he doesn't introduce himself or anything. He kind of walks from the side of the room, doesn't say anything, and there's this little like Bunsen burner or something like on fire there, just kind of going. And he spits something out of his mouth onto the bench, and the whole thing lights on fire. And then he steps back and he's like, hey, I'm Chuck Friedline. That's an introduction. Then he has this little pot of cauldron here with this like, it's got like, what do you call it, steam or smoke coming out the top. And he dunks a banana, he dunks a rubber band into this little pot thing, and then he proceeds to take the rubber band and the banana and pound the rubber band into an apple with the banana. I'm like, what is up with this guy? This guy is nuts. Anyway, he became a mentor of mine, a great, wonderful human. Spent tons of time learning from him how to do scientific reports, how to actually form a sentence. The next guy that I want to highlight just a little bit is another mentor of mine. You may know who this guy is? Dave Novak. Dave Novak used to be the OChem teacher here. And I remember, I got through the first year and I'm like, oh, I got some A's, maybe this med school thing is going to happen. I got to this guy's class, OChem, and that's a whole nother world of hurt. First test, I got a 60%. And I was ticked off. I went to his office and I said, hey, this 60% doesn't go to med school. What's up with you, man? And he's like, what do you mean me? He's like, you didn't study. He's like, you didn't do the work. He's like, you do the work, you get the grade. And I'm like, that's not much help. It actually kind of ticked me off a little bit. But he motivated me to study because he kind of knew that I would be motivated by this challenge. That was the last time I got a 60% on a test in his class. Everything else, straight A's. The last person on here, this is my wife, Sherry. From the very beginning, she has always been my encourager, my person behind me, my cheerleader, my coach. She always knew that I was going to med school. So, how bad do you want it? What do you have to do to accomplish your dream? Later on, I figured out I had ADHD, and ADHD probably doesn't bode very well when you're trying to get to med school, but I remember I loved playing basketball. Another basketball guy here. I loved playing basketball. But Gen Chem, G-Bio, and O-Chem labs were all during basketball practice and during games. And so, professional basketball career was probably pretty low on the list of achievables. Med school was probably higher, so I had to give it up. Played basketball for a year, and that's it. But I really liked playing basketball. I had to give it up. My junior year, I took a review course because I knew I needed it for this wonderful test right here that my daughter Kylie is studying for right now. Paid a bunch of money for it, studied for 2 months or something like that. Did all the practice tests, did everything, and I get a big whopping fat score of 23. Now, they don't score MCATs like that nowadays, but 23 ranked me at 36th percentile. Not so awesome. But that's not the end of the story. So I got a 23 on my MCAT, 36th percentile. So my senior year, I am hoping to go to med school, but I don't have an acceptance letter yet. And I remember Dr. Novak, he whistled a lot. You remember that? He'd walk down the hall and he'd be whistling. He was always a happy guy. And so I'm like in the hallway or something, doing something. He's just passing me, turns around. He's like, hey, you got your acceptance letter to Loma Linda yet? I'm like, no, thanks for the rubbing it in. And then he just keeps whistling and walking on by. And I'm like, what's up with that? Who does that? So I did a couple of more finals, a couple more tests, went off to Christmas break, came back 2 weeks after Christmas, like to the day. I get this letter in the mail from Loma Linda, said, congratulations, you were in the 97 class of Loma Linda University. I'm like, ooh, that's pretty cool. Kind of a little coincidence. And I started thinking about that. So I went to Novak's office. I went to Novak's office and I'm like, what's up, man? I'm like, I did not have an acceptance letter. Now I do. What's up? And he said, well, I might have had a conference at Loma Linda over Christmas. I might have ran into the dean of admissions, and I might have told him you probably should be a med student. That's what union does, FYI. My struggle didn't stop in college. I also struggled in medical school, but I studied hard, 14 hours a day, every single day except for Sabbath. But like the prior slide says, with focus and discipline, you do get better. I went from basically the bottom 10% of the class to the top 20% of the class within a year. I figured out how to study, and it gained me a lot of confidence. I eventually graduated and went off to anesthesia residency in Iowa. Again, working very hard, studying very diligently, and when I took my board exam, I was either the highest score or the second highest score in my class in residency. I went to Kearney, joined a private practice group, and realized that I was an idiot. This guy came knocking on my door, and doctors got a big target on their back. You're a big high-income producer, and we want some of your money. So this slick insurance salesman got me to buy into a, like we talked about, that long-term contract, and it was terrible. I never should have signed that contract for a VUL is what it was called, Variable Universal Life. So it ticked me off so much, I had to become smarter about business and finance, et cetera, et cetera. So I educated myself. I listen to podcasts, attend lectures. Some of these we've already talked about in the prior lecture, but anything by Jim Collins is amazing, good to great, built to last. Robert Kiyosaki is probably one of the premier guys in wealth acquisition or personal finance. If you're trying to build a company, it doesn't get very far away from this guy. I mean, it is literally the how-to manual on how to be an entrepreneur. Millionaire Next Door, this is great for personal finance. Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point, David and Goliath, Outliers, Blink. I also like Dave Novak. He was the president of Pepsi. I think it says something like How Leaders Lead. It's a great podcast. But here's the important point. I was beginning to think differently. My mindset was no longer just on medicine. All of these people said, hey, if you want to get really starting ahead, so you got to have real estate. And so I then dove into the real estate learning education process. We had a whole stack of books about how to do real estate, how to make money at real estate. So Sherry and I formed an LLC. We got a business account, and we thought we were awesome and bought an apartment building. Oops. That was way too much work. Not the best thing to do. Turnover rate was terrible. The tenants that we have in our apartment building were not high-class citizens. We even had a tenant that was in jail for 3 months, and we didn't know it. So we pivoted. We sold that, and we bought a bunch of duplexes. Well, duplexes are great because, it's a little more high income, it's a little more self-reliant. But we did also things like, pay only with check, get a P.O. box, make your tenants and your renters get the money to you instead of going to them. All of that kind of stuff. So today, regional development, we're 100% hands-on. Sherry does all the leases, tenant communication and agreements. I do all the maintenance and stuff. My claim to fame is that I can usually replace a hot water heater in less than 30 minutes, and I actually time myself. It's more fun that way. But it was not a huge start, but still a small company, 1.5 million in assets, gross revenue of 120 and net revenue about 90,000. But we learned a few things. I mean, we learned how to do business. We learned how to do some of the LLC preparation, etc. So with all this business knowledge of starting regional development and the stuff that I was learning, I wanted to capitalize on that. But in the medical world, I was always kind of wondering when it was going to be my turn. I had some partners, I think, started out with 5 partners, then we got to like 7 partners in anesthesia. And so I was kind of running the business at that point because, 7 doctors, it's not hard to figure out that, to be ahead of them in the business world. Well, I got passed over as being director of anesthesia, and it kind of ticked me off a little bit. However, about that time, our group went through a lot of changes. One of the changes that happened was they essentially became employees. I went to talk to the CEO at the time, and the CEO said, yeah, I want you to be an employee of mine. And I said, why is that? And he says, well, because then I can control you. I'm like, what? I didn't go into medicine just to be controlled by some, guy in a slick suit. No offense, but, I don't want to be controlled. I want to help people. So I didn't sign a contract. I maintained independence. But I knew I was going to go down a different path. Employee model was not for me. So I learned about healthcare, more research, more studying, more understanding about the business of healthcare. So not too long after that, 2008, I remember coming home from visiting the ATV dealership to get some parts or something for my four-wheeler. Coming over the overpass, and I got a phone call from this guy named Larry Spiker. And he's like, hey, we're building a hospital in Kearney. You want to join? I'm like, you're what? I was like, did you say hospital? I was like, that's expensive. That takes a lot of work. I'm like, how's that? That's never going to work. And I basically ended the phone call in about a minute and a half. Well, I went home and told Sherry about that, and then we talked about it, and then I stewed on it, and and Sherry said, you got to do this. This is down your path. This is your wheelhouse. This is what you would want. You're going to regret this if you don't. So within 2 weeks, I gave that business $500,000, became on the board of directors, one of the founders. We worked really hard. It took 6 years. or more, 6 or 8 years before we actually got the building started. There was a lot of headwind. I mean, when you talk about headwind, try starting a business in the worst real estate economy. I mean, there was the real estate crisis of '08. There was the Great Recession. The subprime mortgage crash. I remember I talked to 250 banks and said, hey, I want a $25 million loan in Nebraska. And they would laugh at me. They'd be like, you realize that there's only one loan that I'm going to make this year and it's not going to be to you. I'm like, oh. So anyway, persistence. Oh my goodness, we worked so hard. 2013, we opened the doors. But you know, there was so much headwind. I remember neighbors, friends. I mean, there was hit pieces about me in the newspaper and in the TV station about all kinds of negativity. But this is extreme ownership. Within the first 6 months of opening, I'd lost almost $500,000. I'd spent 6 or 8 years of my life trying to get it done, but it was successful. An article written recently about me in the Bryan Health Connect newsletter. One of the 3 most influential physicians at Kearney Regional, one of the founders. Today, Kearney Regional has over 900 employees. We have $250 million, actually over $250 million for 25 in gross revenue. We were the fastest growing hospital in 2019, 2020, 2018, as well as others. In 22, we knew we kind of ran out of money, and we wanted to build on because the community demanded it. So we looked for a partner in Bryan Healthcare, and so we sold to Bryan in 22 for about $170 million. So lessons I learned from starting Kearney Regional. Number 1, never be afraid to reverse a decision if it's the wrong decision. Don't be married to your decision. Some business ventures take extreme ownership. If Kearney Regional wasn't successful, I was finding a new zip code to live, and I would be bankrupt. Everything that I owned was tied to this hospital. Sometimes you do have to leap without a net. There was no guarantee about Kearney Regional. There was no guarantee we'd be successful. There was no guarantee that any of this was doable. I mean, how many hospitals do you know that have started up in Nebraska in the last 10 years? There's one. We're the one, you know. How many hospitals started up during the Great Recession? 2 in the nation. We were the second hospital in the nation that started during the Great Recession. So, yes, we had to leap without a net. But doing this gave me a huge amount of confidence. It also made me a lot of money. Some of the spin-off investments in other hospitals and other companies are still making money for me today. Richard Branson, the Virgin guy, said, this is a lesson I learned early on and have used it to guide the Virgin story. If someone offers you an amazing opportunity, but you are unsure you can do it, say yes and figure out how to do it later. So, all along about, what was this, maybe 2009, a friend of mine, orthopedic surgeon, Heber Crockett, hey, Wehling, yeah? Come to dinner with me tonight. Oh, okay. Is this a date? No. Okay, bring your checkbook. So I go to this meeting, and it's, you know, you have a little bit of food, and they turn all the lights off, and they start this slide deck of this pitch. You know, you're a wealthy doctor, we want your money, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember purposely not falling asleep, but taking notes, either on paper or mentally. At the end of the meeting, turn the lights on, everybody kind of wakes up, like, oh, what'd you think, And so it's kind of silence. People ask some dumb questions. I agree with Mike from Silverhawk. There's a lot of dumb people out there, including doctors. Asking dumb questions. So I said, what do you think? And I said, all right, you want my honest opinion? You're going to fail. This is really hard. No matter how much you've done, no matter how much you're going to do, you're going to fail. I said, but I'm willing to help you out. That's a cocky statement. I said, when you fail, call me. I'll help you. Now, I don't even remember making that statement. I must have been like half asleep or maybe post-call or something. But 1 year to the day later or thereabouts, the president of the company, Mark Richart, says, hey, yeah, you remember me, Mark Richart? No? He said, well, you were at a meeting in Kearney and you said you could help us out. I was like, I did? He's like, you want to make good on that? I'm like, what are you talking about? We'll get on a plane. So within 24 hours, I was in San Diego, went to the dog lab, or sheep lab there, to help them out with this medical device. Let's just start this little slideshow. Can we make this play? Yeah, so that's this little medical device. And I didn't know any of these guys from Adam, and so here we are, we're going into this kind of bunker-like building, and it's kind of, looking like a a non-medical building, a non-veterinary building. And our goal was to make a percutaneous AV fistula. You see the little cartoon here. Anyway, within 1 hour of me showing up at that facility, we had created the world's first percutaneous AV fistula in a sheep. Now, the reason I could do that is because I knew how to use ultrasound, and I knew ultrasound was going to be better than X-ray or fluoro. Ultrasound is always better in soft tissues than X-ray or fluoro. And so I could use my knowledge, I could leverage that knowledge to help these guys out. So from that day forward, I became a consultant for Avenue Medical. Flew to Mexico several times, San Diego tons of time, basically once a month for like 2 years. I flew down to San Diego to help them out make AV fistulas, teaching them how to do this, teaching them ultrasound, teaching them the flow studies with ultrasound. We went to, one of the strangest ones was Cali, Colombia. If you've ever been to Colombia, it's not a tourist attraction. There's a lot of drug lords down there, and the streets are full of machine guns, 16-year-olds with machine guns. But, lessons I learned from Avenue Medical. Don't just show up for the free food. Take notes, mental or on paper. Number 2, be honest. Ask the hard questions. If somebody gives you a pitch, don't just say, oh yeah, I'd love to help, woo, woo, woo. No, be honest, saying, hey, here's the immediate hurdles that I see this company has. Number 2, here's the talent that you lack in this company. Number 3, here's your financial hurdles. You have all of this business knowledge, you have all this business sense. Be honest with somebody. Number 3, don't assume everybody or others know more than you do. I knew these guys couldn't get it done with fluoro. I was not afraid to say ultrasound is better, and I knew ultrasound. And so that's what got me in the door with these guys. In 2020, this company, Avenue Medical, was sold to Medtronic for $700 million. Now, my portion was about $2.5 million, but still, these guys that started Avenue Medical still call me and contact me today. And I still have, I think, Avera Medical is a spinoff company of this, still in development, looking for FDA approval. Sono anesthesia. So like I said before, another company that I started, Sono Anesthesia PC, was because my pre-existing partners became employees, and I wanted something different. I didn't want to be an employee. I had this entrepreneurial mind, this entrepreneurial spirit. And so I got really involved with building this new hospital, Kearney Regional Medical Center, then soon discovered that this new hospital was not going to have an anesthesia group to do the anesthesia, and I was kind of really the only guy that knew anything about anesthesia or surgery who was a founder of this hospital. And so I was like, what do they say, plant when the sun's shining or something? There's an opportunity, take it, Started a PC, figured out how to incorporate a name, talked to several attorneys, got some, sorry, an attorney to get some business documents drawn up, and then we went to work doing anesthesia at Kearney Regional Medical Center. We quickly got bigger, and the company that I had hired to do my billing and collections and back office stuff essentially fell on their face. They couldn't handle, when it was just 1 or 2 people working for them, it was great, but then when we got to 10 or 12, they just couldn't get it done. Their collections rate was terrible, their reporting was terrible. So I went to what I knew, which was Sherry, and I begged and begged and begged and begged her to come be my boss. That was a lot of convincing. But she did decide to come run the company, and then in 2019 we expanded to another hospital, Grand Island Regional Medical Center. Started up the anesthesia company there. And in 22, I think was our last year, we performed 7,000 cases. We had $6 million in gross revenue. We had like 15 providers, 4 MDs, 3 CRNAs, 3 office staff. But a lot of things happened that I had to change gears. One of which is I got multiple myeloma, a blood cancer. I had to focus on treatment, focus on the chemo and the stem cell and all that. Number 2, my talent cost went through the roof. Initially, when I started Sono, I could get a CRNA for about $190,000 to $200,000. When we were done, they were leaving me to go make $300,000 in North Platte, and I could make money at $200,000. I could not make money at $300,000 employing CRNAs. So I didn't ride the company into the ground, but we pivoted and eventually became employees of ourselves, basically, at the new hospital. So, Bill Gates has a wonderful quote here. The first million is always the hardest. And so, I want to just kind of summarize quickly. I'm not going to, go too deep in the weeds on all this. And I got another slide that's pretty important I want to talk to you about, and then we'll have some questions. But I've done a lot of things in business, done a lot of things in healthcare. Started a lot of companies, helped a lot of companies. This is what I've learned. It only looks doable after you've done it. So many times people said, even my sister called me up. She's like, what are you doing buying an apartment building? What are you doing buying real estate? She says, you don't know anything about that. That's not where you need to focus on. Your kids and your family and all that's just going to suffer. Now, she's into real estate. Kearney Regional. So many people had, you're going to be financially bankrupt. It's never going to happen. You're never going to make any headway on that. Even Avenue Medical. Avenue Medical had spent, $8 million, $6 million before I stepped in. They had spent $6 million and they didn't even accomplish step 1, which is make a fish in a sheep. And so that's a lot of cash outlay and faith that you're going to be able to get it done. So this idea where it only looks doable after you've done it is real. Number 2, don't quit your day job. All of these businesses, all of these companies, everything that I have done is in my free time. I have a real job. My real job is putting people to sleep, waking them up. And that's a 40 to 60 hour a week job. And that's taking call, and nights and weekends, doing cardiac anesthesia, putting in epidurals, etc. But so many times you sit at home and you just scroll on your phone, or you scroll through Facebook, or you sit there and watch TV, or you don't maximize your time. In medical school, every moment that I had a cognitive thought, I was studying. And then when that went away, I had all of this free time. What am I going to do? So you push yourself to about maybe 60% of your capacity. What do you do with that other 40%? Don't quit your day job. All of these were happening while I was working 30 to 50 hours a week. Number 3, educate yourself. We talked about all those books, all the podcasts, all of that thing. It's surprising what you can gain knowledge of and mastery of just by simply taking time to do it. A couple hours and you can be pretty educated on most things. Google knows everything. A good attorney, a good CPA will cover the rest. Number 4, extreme ownership. All of these businesses, all of this stuff, especially Kearney Regional, I had to be all in. I had guaranteed probably $4 million of assets at Kearney Regional for the bank to step up. And I don't have $4 million of asset at the time. And so that was a bankruptcy guaranteed if we closed shop, if we got into this and said, hey, it ain't going to happen. And in fact, when we first opened in 2013, we did, I don't know, half a dozen cases, and we had a few patients. But we made a mistake. We didn't have a patient overnight in the hospital. Surveyors came, and when we okay, great, wonderful, let's do all this care, and we're going to bill it later. Well, we got $4 million worth of free care, and then the surveyor says, you don't get a license. So we had spent every dime that we had, and then some, and then all of our startup or our operating line, and still didn't have a license. And so talk about a down day. I mean, we had been basically open for 6 months doing free care, still didn't have a license, and couldn't collect a dime. That's extreme ownership. We brought those surveyors back in, got them in within a month. Within 6 weeks after the negative, we got a positive saying, yes, you can be an acute care facility. And since then, we've kept the doors open, and it's been a great success. Number 5, baby steps breed confidence. I wouldn't have done any of this if I wouldn't have started small. I started with regional development, bought a few rental properties. That allowed me to start an LLC. That allowed me to get another business account. That allowed me to find a good attorney, find a good accountant. All of those confidence building steps. The important part here is get the process right, then grow. Because it's a whole lot easier once you have the process right, once you have the business right, once you have the right people in the right places to be able to grow. Regional gave me the confidence to do Avenue. Avenue gave me the confidence to do Sono. Sono gave me the confidence to do Kearney Regional. Number 6, know when to change course. It's only a good decision if it's a good decision. Otherwise, it's a bad decision. Don't be afraid to reverse your decision just because you've already made it. Reevaluate that and saying, hey, is this the right direction I want to go? Number 7, family is an asset. My kids helped us, including Kylie and Caleb. We painted, we built decks, we laid carpet, processed claims. It was always a family event. And so therefore, this idea that you have business on this side and family on this side, nope, they were right together in our family. Everybody was together, we all worked together, and we all learned. My kids learned how to make money, and they learned the power of work and how to make money. A great, great lesson. Last one, Michael Jordan. Don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try. But there's one more lesson I got to talk to you about, and this is the most important one. So this one you can all wake up for, and you got to kind of pay attention here. There's one lesson that I got to teach you guys. In March of 22, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. Those medical people would know that multiple myeloma is a blood cancer, and blood cancer of the alpha subunit of the antibody. Going through treatment was rough. I had to take 6 months off. I lost 25 pounds. Probably the most physically challenging thing that I've ever done. But it reminded me that starting or helping start many multi-million-dollar businesses, companies, corporations, etc., having a net worth of over $10 million, being a financial power player, all of that is absolutely meaningless. When you're flat on your back, you're staring at the ceiling, and you're like, is this all there is to life? You know what the lesson is? God is with you in that time. What is important is knowing God. Money's fine, business is fine, business is fun, winning at business is even more fun, but the most important is knowing Jesus. Jesus is hope. Jesus is peace. Jesus is everlasting life. In Matthew 22, 36 through 39, it says, the first and greatest commandment. Anybody know those commandments? Love God and love people. Put God first. Put your time, talents, and energy and effort. Number 1 is God. Business is number 2. And number 2, love on people. People will rarely remember you for your money or your power, but they will rarely forget how you love them. how you treated them. Love is the greatest force in the universe. Don't be afraid to use it. All right. Thank you. Questions? Yes?
After watching your parents go bankrupt, what gave you the confidence to go all in on the hospital?
Stupidity. I didn't know better. Like I said, I had started regional development at that point. I had started kind of working on the Avenue medical thing. I was probably a little cocky, but there was part of me that was willing to accept that risk. Now, the great part about being a physician is you can go bankrupt one year and the next year still make $500,000 because you have a talent and an asset, and that's your skills and your abilities. And so I was willing to risk that, go all in, go big or go home, when I probably would not do that now. I didn't have as many assets then. I got a lot more assets now, and it took me a long time to get those assets. And so would I do the same thing now? Probably, but I wouldn't do it to that extent. Good question. All right, who else? I saw another hand. Yes?
You mentioned earlier that you learned how to study.
Mm-hmm.
What tactics, what skill sets would you do specifically that switched it from a bottom 10% to a top 20% of the class?
Great question. Awesome question. I love that question. So when I was a kid, my mom was in the education system, and I think she was maybe like special ed or something like that. Early on, ADHD was not diagnosed. There was, learning disabilities and all of that. ADHD was not one of them. And my mom being a special ed teacher, a lot of my elementary teachers said, hey, get this guy tested, he's got some problems. My mom said no. And the reason that she said that is, regardless of whether you have problems, when you're in the real world, they don't care if you have problems. Whether you got ADHD or Alzheimer's. The chemo has not done well for my brain. The thing where kids just don't act quite right. What? Autism, yes, that's what it is. And so, anyway, I never got tested, but I always struggled with focus and attention, especially when I was where you're at. I could read a paragraph, get into the second sentence, and thinking about that squirrel that's in the tree outside. And I just couldn't get my brain back onto the page. And so what helped me a bunch, to answer your question, is highlighters. And so I got 3 colors of highlighters. And in medical school, they would give you the notes for the first month or whatever in a binder. And there's a lot of notes. And so I would pre-read the lecture for the week or the day or whatever. And stuff that I thought was important, that was a yellow highlighter. And then I would go to lecture, and then I would take those things that the lecturer would kind of point out or whatever in the notes. And maybe that was an orange highlighter. And then post-read, after the lecture, either that night or on Sunday to read the last week's stuff, then I would just do little underlines with an orange highlighter. If I came to a test time and I saw a section or words that had 3 highlighters in it, underneath the orange, that's gold mine right there. I am going to hit that hard, and every single one of those topics or things I would commit to memory, and that would be my study pattern. That helped me go from basically the bottom 10% to the top 10%. So, great question though. I love it. Yes?
How are you able to manage your time while doing so many things at the same time?
I don't know. How am I able to manage I get bored a lot. I really do. One of my biggest fears in choosing a career is I didn't want a career that would make me bored. And one of the reasons I chose medicine is it is a big topic. I mean, you really can't get all the knowledge of humans and the science of humans in your brain. You can always learn more. That was appealing to me. And so this idea of being bored really kind of drove me nuts. And so I sleep, but I don't sleep a lot compared to some. And so at 5 in the morning, when I'd get up, I don't have to go to work until, 6:30. What am I going to do for an hour and a half? Sit there and stare at the wall or watch Netflix? You got to do something. So that's when I would read and I would study and I would gain some of that knowledge, figure out how to solve problems. Some of the other times, like, when you're in the OR and you're in the middle of a 6-hour case, you're kind of on autopilot. What are you going to do? Sudoku or some, crossword puzzle? I mean, the jokes about anesthesia. I would study. I would read. I'd take my laptop and I would learn about medicine. I'd learn about healthcare. I would learn about, the business and the finance. I'd answer emails. I'd make deals. I'd make all that stuff. And so you can do a lot if you focus your time and attention. Not everybody can, but you can. I promise you. Good question. Great question. I think we got one more question and that's it.
Have you ever had someone wake up in surgery?
Wake up in surgery? Yes, 100%. Everybody should wake up at the end of surgery. And you know what? I'm telling you, you will keep your job if the number you put to sleep is the same number that wakes up. If that number gets screwed up, they'll fire you. I promise.
They said 6-hour surgery, and then they wake up 3 hours later.
Yeah, but what you're asking is, will they wake up and they're not supposed to? The answer is no. I mean, we do a lot of monitoring, a lot of testing, a lot of things to make sure that patients are asleep when they're under anesthesia. Great question. All right, thank you all for paying attention, and hopefully you learned something.